paradrama tales. It all started with the cheese, not just any cheese. This wasn't some grocery store block of cheddar. This was a Sodero. Soft, creamy, a little salty, a little smoky, and absolutely irreplaceable. My mom brings it to me from my hometown every time she visits. She wraps it like gold, tucks it into her suitcase between clothes. It's from a tiny village 2 hours outside the city, and no, the stuff you find online isn't the same, not even clothes. That cheese is more than food, it's a taste of home, a reminder that I exist somewhere in someone's heart. So when I opened the fridge and it was gone, something in me broke. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a chair, but I did buy a plastic lockbox with a combo lock and put it right in the middle of the fridge. I filled it with the few joys I had left, my fancy yogurt, my cold brew, some imported chocolate, and whatever remained of my spirit. I slapped a note on the front, Un Howers DDNTRYLB RDNACTOF. Was it petty? Maybe. Was it dramatic? Absolutely. But when you live with someone who steals your food with zero remorse and calls your homeland cheese, just cheese, you either snap or you survive. And this, my friends, this was cheese survival. I live in a pretty standard 3-bedroom apartment with 2 roommates, Ben and Sasha. Ben is the ideal roommate. Quiet, clean, owns exactly 1 houseplant and waters it like a proud father. We don't talk much, but when we do, it's always solid. The kind of guy who says, "Good morning," and actually means it. He labels his leftovers. He refills the Brita. He's the Switzerland of this household. Then there's Sasha. Sasha is the kind of person who drinks oat milk but hates oat milk. You know what I mean? She opens the fridge, sees something that isn't hers, and somehow thinks that's an invitation. She's not malicious. She's not sneaky. She's just shameless. She once ate an entire pint of Ben's gelato and when he asked about it said, "Oh, I thought it was community dessert." Community dessert. Ben didn't even respond. He just nodded slowly like a man who'd seen too much and went back to his book. With me, it started small. A couple of strawberries here. A few chips there. Once, a whole avocado disappeared overnight. I chalked it up to forgetfulness. Maybe I ate it. Maybe I left it at work. Maybe the fridge is haunted by a ghost who only eats Trader Joe's. Then I started noticing patterns. It was always the good stuff, the Greek yogurt with honey, gone. My special cold brew concentrate from that overpriced cafe downtown, vanished. Imported chocolate brought back from a layover in Europe, mysteriously evaporated. She never asked, never texted, never left a note, just assumed that shared fridge meant coupon season. One time I confronted her, gently. "Hey, did you happen to eat my hummus?" She blinked at me like I'd asked her to solve a physics equation. "Oh yeah, I had a little. I figured you wouldn't mind. You always have snacks, right? Because owning snacks is apparently a public service now." I wanted to scream. "Would you say the same thing if I borrowed your shampoo every day because you always have hair?" But I didn't. I let it slide. That was my mistake. Because people like Sasha thrive in silence. If no one says anything, then nothing's wrong. She doesn't operate on guilt. She operates on convenience. If it's there and no one's watching, it's hers until the cheese, the sacred, glorious, smuggled from home Asadero cheese. She didn't even try to deny it. Yeah, I had a little. I didn't think it was a big deal, it's just cheese. It was not just cheese, it was the final straw. The last light in my week. The only taste of home I had left after a brutal month of work deadlines, rent increases, and general existential dread. And this woman, this unapologetic refrigerator raider, had swallowed it like it was string cheese from 7-Eleven. So yes, that's when I snapped. Not with yelling, but with cold, calculated, dairy-fueled vengeance. It's hard to explain what that cheese meant to me. To Sasha, it was just some white cheese that happened to be in the fridge, unguarded, unmarked, and therefore fair game. To her, it was a snack. But to me, it was home. I was born and raised in a small town in Mexico, population just under 10,000. The kind of place where everyone knows your grandmother's mole recipe and argues about whose tamales are best. Every summer, the plaza fills with the smell of grilled corn. The church bells ring at odd hours and street vendors shout louder than the music playing from every open window. And the cheese is everywhere. Melted into tortillas, tucked into fresh bolillos, eaten straight off the knife while chatting on the patio. It's soft, mild, stretchy, with just enough salt to taste like something real. Not factory real, not mass-produced real. Real like somebody's hands made this. But here in the city I live in now, you can find something called a Sodero in specialty stores or online. It comes vacuum sealed, rubbery, and somehow already sad. It's technically the same name, but it's not the same. The kind my mother brings me, lovingly wrapped in Ziploc bags, hidden between shirts and her checked luggage, prayed over at TSA, is different. It tastes like home, and every time she visits, she brings some. She never asks if I still want it. She just knows. It's her way of feeding me even when I'm 2,000 miles away from her kitchen. A quiet reminder that I'm still her kid, even if I'm living on my own paying bills acting like I have it all together. This last time, she brought more than usual. She said, "You've been working so hard lately. I brought the kind you like best. From the guy at the Sunday market, remember?" I remembered. And when she left, I didn't eat it all at once. I hid it carefully, behind the milk, under a bag of spinach no one touches. Because this wasn't snack food. This was emergency joy. The kind you save for the bad days. The kind you reach for when work is overwhelming, the weather's miserable, and life feels like one long spreadsheet with no color. So when I opened the fridge that night, after a particularly soul-sucking workday, and found the spot empty, I knew. Not because there was a note, not because someone asked, but because it was just gone. And I knew who had taken it. I didn't want to believe it. I even asked, one last time, giving her an out. Did you see some cheese in the fridge, white, kind of soft, wrapped in a Ziploc? She barely looked up from her phone. Oh yeah, I had some. It was as if I'd offered it. As if it had just appeared. As if it wasn't the only thing in that fridge that carried a piece of my heart. When I said, "That cheese is from my mom," she didn't flinch. She just shrugged. I didn't think it was a big deal, and I wanted to scream. It's not about the cheese. It's about everything behind it. The flight, the family, the effort, the memory. The fact that something that brought me so much comfort could be taken so thoughtlessly. And that's when I realized I couldn't let this keep happening. Because if I didn't draw a line at this, I'd keep losing little pieces of peace in my own home. I didn't yell. I didn't confront her in the living room like a reality show contestant. I just shut down. There's a certain kind of silence that comes when you hit your limit. A cold, clean stillness. You stop trying to justify your feelings. You stop giving people the benefit of the doubt. You stop hoping they'll change. Instead, you plan. And that night, I planned. After cleaning out the empty cheese bag, yes, she left the empty bag. I sat on the couch, opened my laptop, and typed 4 words into the search bar. Fridge lockbox combo. Options came up immediately. Apparently, I wasn't the only victim of shared fridge betrayal. There were pages of results. Some clear plastic, some steel, some with alarms, some with actual fingerprint sensors. A whole online ecosystem of passive-aggressive food defense. I chose a clear, medium-sized box with a dial combination lock. Sleek, practical, big enough to fit cheese, yogurt, cold brew, and maybe a moral boundary or two. 2-day shipping. Done. When it arrived, I unpacked it like it was sacred. I tested the lock 3 times. I put it in the fridge, filled it with my favorite things, the backup cheese, the fancy chocolate from Trader Joe's, the imported yogurt with the label I can't pronounce. Then, with dramatic flair, I taped a note to the front in all caps. Was it aggressive? Maybe. Was it earned? Oh, absolutely. To me, it was a peace offering wrapped in sarcasm, a way of saying, I'm not here to fight, but I am done letting you take whatever you want. Sasha saw it within the hour. She opened the fridge, stood there for a solid 10 seconds, then let out a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Wow, she said. Seriously. I looked up from the couch. Seriously. She closed the fridge. Hard. A few minutes later, I got a text from the same person sitting 12 feet away. Sasha, you're being super hostile right now. Sasha, this is so passive-aggressive. Sasha, you're dividing the house. I stared at my screen. Dividing the house. No, Sasha. You divided the house the moment you decided someone else's food wasn't worth asking about. Still, I took a breath. I replied calmly, men, not trying to start anything. Just protecting my stuff since asking didn't seem to work. Let's not make this a thing. She didn't answer. Later that night, she slammed a cabinet or two, loud footsteps. Heavy sighs. It was parent. Tremo's funny, but I didn't bite, because here's the thing about quiet people. We don't lash out often, but when we do, it's not chaos, it's clarity. I wasn't punishing her. I was protecting my peace, and yes, my cheese. I knew it wouldn't fix the dynamic overnight. I wasn't expecting an apology. I wasn't expecting her to suddenly change. I just wanted a little corner of that fridge to be mine again. Untouched, unbothered, respected. And with that doll's 29 plastic box and 4-digit code, I finally had it. War wasn't declared out loud, but the message was received. Loud and clear. The fridge had never felt so political. What used to be a shared appliance, a basic white Whirlpool humming quietly in the corner, was now a battleground. And at the center of it all sat my clear plastic lockbox, shining like a tiny fortress of personal boundaries. Every time Sasha opened the fridge was a performance. She'd sigh dramatically, leave the door open a little too long, shift items around just loud enough for me to hear from the living room. As if moving the ketchup bottle angrily would unlock the box through sheer willpower. I said nothing. She never said plenty, just not to me. She started muttering to Ben under her breath. Loud enough for me to catch phrases like, seriously, who does that? It's just food, not the nuclear codes. Passive-aggressive much. Ben, bless him, tried to stay neutral. But even neutrality has a weight to it. I could tell he hated being in the middle, caught between my quiet rebellion and Sasha's fridge rants. One night, after she stomped out of the kitchen post, side of 453. You okay? He said. I said, just tired of people touching things that aren't theirs. He nodded. Fair. And that was it? No drama, no sides, just a grown adult acknowledging that maybe, just maybe, people deserve to eat their own food in peace. But Sasha, she wasn't done. A few days later, she cornered me in the kitchen, mid-toast of course. Always during breakfast when my brain isn't ready for moral debates. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, and opened with, "You know, the lockbox makes the whole house feel tense." I took a bite of toast. She nodded. Yeah. It's not just about food, it's about trust. I stared at her. Actually stared. You're talking to me about trust. After you ate my cheese, my yogurt, my chocolate, and who knows what else. She shrugged. It's not like I meant anything by it. I just thought we had more of a casual vibe. Ah, yes. The famous casual theft vibe. I said, we did, until casual meant I lost $15 worth of snacks every week. She rolled her eyes. It's just stuff, dude. No, I said. It's my stuff. Silence. Then she said it. That note you left. Unauthorized entry will be considered an act of war. That's passive-aggressive. I smiled. Actually, I said, it's just aggressive-aggressive. I meant every word. She blinked. I continued, you're not in trouble, I'm not mad. But if you touch my stuff again, I will escalate. I'm talking AirTags in my hummus, surveillance cameras in the crisper drawer, motion sensors on the almond milk. A beat, then laughter, real laughter, the first in days. She shook her head, you're insane. Maybe, I said. But so is calling cheese just cheese. After that, something shifted. No apology, no grand truce. But the storm passed. She stopped touching my things. I stopped glaring at the fridge. The lockbox stayed, and with time, it just became another weird fixture in the apartment, like Ben's bonsai tree or the crooked light switch no one fixes. And maybe that was the real victory. Not revenge, not even resolution, just peace, preserved. Cold and locked behind a 4-digit code. I didn't mean to start an internet war. It began the way most emotional breakdowns disguised as comedy begin, at 1:47 a.m., with too much caffeine, too much silence, and one lingering thought. Am I the crazy one? So I did what anyone my age does when they don't want to pay for therapy. I posted about it online, specifically on Reddit, subreddit re-imethe hole. Title, something like, EID for putting a lockbox in our fridge because my roommate kept stealing my cheese. I wrote it in one go. No edits. Just unfiltered rage, humor, and dairy-fueled despair. I explained the context. I gave the backstory. I described the cheese with the reverence of a monk talking about sacred relics. And I ended it with, look, I'm not trying to be hostile, I just needed my snacks to be safe. And yes, the note said, Eden kor zentr well betrl bstordanactfwar, but like jokingly. I hit post, and then I slept like a baby. When I woke up, I had 137 notifications. By noon, it was on the front page. People loved it, and people hated it. The comment section became a digital colosseum. Two factions emerged, both loud, both passionate, both weirdly invested in my dairy consumption. Team Lockbox, absolutely NTA. Fridge pirates deserve nothing. I bought a lockbox after reading this. Game changer. This is not passive-aggressive. This is justice. Team chill out. It's just food, bro. Get over yourself. The note was unnecessarily dramatic. Sounds like you need to move out or calm down. There was also Team What is the Cheese? A neutral faction obsessed with the true star of the story. What kind of cheese are we talking about? W can I be you highs? Does your mom ship internationally? I had to edit the post just to add the cheese is a satire. Bought homemade from a little town in northern Mexico. It's soft, melty, divine, and no. You can't get it on Amazon, I checked. By that evening, someone had made a meme picture of a fridge lockbox with glowing lights around it, captioned, "One diplomacy fails, build your castle." Another person DM'd me to say they once trapped their yogurt with hot sauce to catch a roommate thief. I started getting private messages that said simply, "You are not alone." It was beautiful and a little terrifying. Sasha found out, of course. Someone she knew saw the post, connected the dots, and sent her a screenshot. She stormed into the kitchen with the phone in her hand like it was a smoking gun. You posted about me. I blinked. I changed names. She glared. Still me. I shrugged. You shouldn't have eaten the cheese. For a second, I thought she was going to throw a spoon at me. But then she smirked. You're kind of an idiot, she said. But I'll give you this. You commit, We never really talked about it again. The lockbox stayed, the food stayed untouched, and I became the unofficial patron saint of passive-aggressive fridge justice. It wasn't an apology, not really. But one Thursday afternoon, about a week after the Great Cheese lockdown and the Reddit explosion, Sasha poked her head into my room and said, "Wanna grab lunch? My treat." I blinked at her. "Lunch with you?" She must have sensed my hesitation because she added, "Consider it a piece burrito." I laughed. Against my better judgment, I said yes. We ended up at this tiny Mexican spot around the corner. I'd been there once. She'd apparently never noticed it existed. Ironic, considering her history of discovering things that aren't hers. We ordered our food. I went with carne asada tacos. She picked chicken enchiladas. As we sat down, she looked across the table and said, "You know, I didn't think the cheese would turn into World War II, though." I raised an eyebrow. "It wasn't World War, more like a tactical boundary operation." She smirked. "Fair." There was a pause, long enough for real things to want to rise to the surface. Then she said, "More serious now. I didn't get it at first, the cheese, the lockbox, all of it. I thought you were just being dramatic." I stayed quiet. She went on, "But when I read the part about your mom, the suitcase thing, I think that's when it clicked. I felt something soften, not just in her, but in me." She took a bite, then added, "I don't really have stuff like that, like food that feels like home. I just eat whatever's there." There it was. Not quite an apology, but a glimpse into why, and sometimes that's enough, I said. "Look, I don't mind sharing, I really don't. But I need it to be a choice, not a surprise." She nodded. "That's fair." There was something oddly mature about the whole moment. Two slightly dysfunctional adults having tacos and establishing diplomatic relations over stolen dairy and Reddit clout. She paid the bill like she promised. We walked home in a comfortable silence. Back at the apartment, she paused before heading to her room. "For the record," she said, "I didn't take the chocolate." I narrowed my eyes. Swear. "Okay." That night, she made herself pasta and, for the first time ever, labeled it. I nearly cried. The fridge still had its lockbox. I wasn't taking it out anytime soon. But the energy in the apartment had changed. No more dramatic fridge size. No more muttered comments about division in the house. Just peace. Quiet, low stakes, adult-ish peace. It didn't mean we were best friends. It didn't mean I fully trusted her again. But it did mean we could coexist without me fantasizing about installing motion sensors on my oat milk. Resolution. Sort of. Enough. The lockbox stays. It's not just about the cheese anymore. Not really. That battle is over. Casualties counted, drawn, peace burritos exchanged. But the lockbox, that's not going anywhere. It sits on the second shelf next to the Brita like a plastic throne. It glows under the fridge light. Sometimes, I swear I hear angelic music when I open the door. People have asked me, online and even in real life, if I'm gonna get rid of it now that things are cool with Sasha. No, I am not. Because the lockbox is more than just a food safe. It's a symbol. Of what exactly? Good question. Let's break it down. 1. It's about control, not in a manipulative way. In a personal boundary way. Life is chaotic. Work burns you out. Your mom texts in all caps. You go to bed thinking about emails you haven't answered. Everything feels just slightly out of your hands. Except the lockbox, it is my kingdom. A cold plastic vault where I decide what stays, what gets eaten, and what never has to survive the threat of sticky roommate fingers. I open that combination dial, and for 3 seconds, the world makes sense. That's worth keeping. 2. It's about petty satisfaction. Yes, I'll admit it. There's a part of me that loves watching Sasha open the fridge, glance at my stash, and know she can't have it. She'll see a glimmer of fancy chocolate, a bottle of expensive cold brew, a slice of leftover pizza from the good place, not the corner place, and she'll close the fridge door empty-handed. That's not revenge. I'm not ashamed of it. We all deserve a little petness, especially when it's harmless, especially when it comes with sprinkles. 3. It's a reminder that it's okay to draw lines. For a long time I didn't. I let people borrow my things, walk over my time, ignore my requests, all because I didn't want to seem difficult. I didn't want to rock the boat. The lockbox rocked the boat, and guess what? The boat didn't sink. Turns out boundaries don't break relationships, they reveal them. Sasha didn't implode. She didn't kick me out. She bought me lunch. And now? Now she asks, "Who is this yours? Mind if I try this?" Do you understand how powerful that is? That's growth. That's progress. That's a Sidero justice. I still open the box with ceremony. Turn the dial like I'm unlocking a treasure chest. Lift the lid slowly. Reach in for my yogurt like I'm Indiana Jones retrieving an artifact. Because I earned this. Not just the food, the space. The right to have something that is only mine. It sounds dramatic, but so was having to defend dairy in my own home. So yes, the lockbox stays. And if I ever move, it's coming with me. 'Cause nothing tastes better than respect, chilled to perfection behind a 3-digit code. When people talk about living with roommates, they usually focus on the big stuff. Rent, chores, who gets the bigger room, who clogged the shower, whether the AC stays at 72 or 75 degrees. But anyone who's ever shared a fridge, a kitchen, a life with strangers turned temporary family knows. It's the small stuff that'll break you. Like the last egg, the mug you always use, the cheese your mother smuggled in from across the border. Living with people is an emotional negotiation you don't even realize you're making. Until someone crosses an invisible line and suddenly everything feels wrong. And the lines, they're not always about the objects themselves. They're about what the objects represent. The hummus isn't just hummus. It's a small thing you looked forward to after work. The coffee creamer isn't just coffee creamer. It's the reason you could survive a Monday morning meeting. The cheese wasn't just cheese, it was home. And when someone takes those things casually, without asking, without thinking, they're not just stealing calories. They're stealing care. The care you gave yourself, the moment you saved for later. The reminder that you matter even in a crowded apartment. That's the truth no one tells you about shared space. It tests your ability to be kind without becoming invisible. Because kindness without boundaries becomes resentment. And boundaries without kindness become war. So where do we land? Somewhere in the middle. Somewhere where the coffee is labeled, the leftovers are respected, and the silent rules become spoken agreements. Roommate life is built on the unspoken: don't take what's not yours. Don't blast music after midnight. Flush. Always flush. But when those unspoken rules are broken, you have 2 options: stay silent, stew quietly, and let your inner peace rot like expired yogurt. Speak up. Awkwardly, directly, or with a clear plastic lockbox. I chose the second. Not because I love confrontation, but because I love sanity more. And here's the funny thing. Once the boundary was set, peace followed. Sasha stopped raiding my section of the fridge. She started labeling her own food. We didn't become best friends, but we became functional cohabitants, and honestly, that's the dream. Because living together isn't about forcing closeness. It's about maintaining enough respect so no one has to hide their lunch like a raccoon hoarding berries. If you've ever lived with roommates, you know the feeling. You open the fridge and something is gone, again. And you think, it's not the food. It's the fact that I have to wonder who I can trust with the smallest parts of my day. And if you haven't had that moment yet, you will. Because sharing space is easy in theory, but in practice, it's sacred geometry, emotional Tetris, and cold diplomacy, all packed into a 900 square foot apartment with bad Wi-Fi. So here's the real lesson: you're allowed to take up space. Even in the fridge, even in silence, even with a lockbox that says unauthorized entry will be considered an act of war. Because sometimes standing up for your hummus is the first step in standing up for yourself. And no, that's not dramatic, that's adulting. At least the version of it I can afford on my current rent. In the end, it wasn't about the cheese, okay? It was a little about the cheese, but mostly it was about the principle. The idea that in a world where so much feels out of our control, rent, gas prices, your neighbor's wife name, we should at least be able to count on our snacks staying where we left them. And for a while I couldn't, so I drew a line with a plastic box and a 4-digit code and a slightly dramatic note written in all caps. And you know what? It worked. Not because it scared anyone into submission, not because it made me the alpha of the fridge, but because it said without apology, this is mine, this matters to me, and I'm allowed to protect what brings me joy, no matter how small it is. So to anyone out there silently mourning a missing slice of pizza, to anyone tiptoeing around to seem extra, to you don't empty didn't yogurt cup that you definitely ever looked into ether's yogurt cup, because ever you definitely didn't eat and thought, is this how civilizations fall? You are not alone, your feelings are valid, your snacks are sacred, and your fridge deserves order. So whether you use a lockbox, a neon label, or the sheer power of a disappointed stare, take your space. You don't have to be aggressive. You just have to be clear, because respect starts in the little places, the shelves, the leftovers, the second drawer where the good cheese lives. And yes, sometimes standing up for your dairy is exactly what growing up looks like. Have a roommate horror story, a petty fridge victory, or a snack you'd go to war over. Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe for more tales of modern survival. And remember, your cheese, your rules, your fridge nation. Stay strong out there.